Want to speak real Hebrew from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at HebrewPod101.com.
Hi everybody, Edith here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Hebrew questions. The question for this lesson is, are there dialects in Hebrew? Modern Israeli Hebrew has no geographical dialects, but there are some features of the language that change between different social or ethnic groups, expressed mainly in the pronunciation of guttural consonants. Hebrew was a frozen language for 17 centuries. It was used mostly for liturgical purposes and was not a spoken language. Towards the end of the 19th century started a process called the revival of the Hebrew language. It took place in Europe and Palestine and changed the usage of Hebrew from a sacred language to a spoken one, the one used for daily life in Israel. In the beginning of this process, there were mainly three groups of Hebrew regional accents: Ashkenazi, spoken by Jews from Eastern Europe; Sephardi, spoken by Jews from Spain, Brazil, Portugal, and Italy; and Mizrahi, spoken by Jews from the Middle East. As the process went on, features of the different kind of pronunciation merged, and today spoken Hebrew has two main varieties: Oriental and non-Oriental, that differ mainly in the pronunciation of the consonants Ein, Chet, and Reish. In short, an Israeli whose parents came from Yemen sounds a little different than an Israeli whose parents came from Russia, but in further generations, the accent normalizes to more standard modern Hebrew accent. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below, and I'll try to answer them. להתראות! Hi everybody, Edith here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Hebrew questions. The question for this lesson is, which are the most common Hebrew greetings? Like any other language, Hebrew has many greetings that native speakers use all the time. In this lesson, we'll learn some of the most common ones. The first one is titchadesh. The expression titchadesh is said to someone who just bought or got something new. It can be anything from a haircut to a new house. This expression comes from the word chadash, meaning new, and its literal translation is something like, "You shall be renewed." There's no natural translation in English. If you want to say the same expression to a woman, you'll say titchadshi. If you want to use it to greet more than one person, you'll use the plural form, titchadshu. The next expression is kol hakavod. Kol hakavod literally means all the respect. You can say it to someone in order to show your appreciation for an achievement they've made, big or small. It means something like, well done, or way to go. Unlike titchadesh, this expression doesn't change according to the person you're speaking to. An example would be, העברית שלך טובה מאוד, כל הכבוד. Your Hebrew is very good, way to go. The next expression is very useful. It's said a few times every day, בתיאבון. Betavon literally means with appetite, and is the Hebrew equivalent of the French bon appétit. You'll hear it from waiters in restaurants and from hosts presenting a dish, and you can use it when eating with other people right before taking the first bite. If you happen to sneeze around Hebrew speakers, you'll hear the next expression, labriut. Labriut literally means to health. It's the Hebrew version of the English bless you and the Yiddish zum gesund. You can use it whenever somebody sneezes. Try using these expressions whenever you can. It will make your Hebrew sound more natural. How was this lesson? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. Later. Hi everybody, Edith here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Hebrew questions. The question for this lesson is it true that Hebrew was a dead language for centuries? Actually, Hebrew was never dead. It just ceased to be a spoken language. But let's start from the beginning. Historically, Hebrew is regarded as the language of the Israelites and their ancestors, and was a spoken language in the kingdoms of Israel and Judah from about 1200 BCE. Hebrew had ceased to be an everyday spoken language somewhere between 200 and 400 CE, declining since the Bar Kokhba revolt. However, it survived into the medieval period as the language of Jewish liturgy, rabbinic literature, and poetry. Since the Bible is written in Hebrew, all the Jewish people around the world could read and understand it. In the 18th century, the Jewish community in Jerusalem was composed of Sephardic Jews who spoke Ladino or Arabic, and Ashkenazi Jews who spoke Yiddish. In order to communicate, they needed a common language, so they created the early version of spoken Hebrew. However, it still wasn't a native language, but a basic way to communicate. The literary Hebrew was renewed in Europe starting from the 18th century by a Jewish movement that decided Hebrew was deserving of fine literature. Hebrew writers of the time wanted to write essays, poems, and novels, and to translate European literature and science books. However, they realized it's very hard to write about contemporary topics in a language that has been frozen in time, so they had to find a way to update the language's vocabulary. Thus, biblical language was combined with figures of speech and vocabulary from the rabbinic literature, together with vocabulary and syntax found in European languages and Semitic languages such as Arabic and Aramaic. Another important contribution to the Hebrew language was made in the 12th and 13th centuries by a Jewish family of rabbis who translated Jewish writing from Arabic to Hebrew. The Arabic language, which belongs to the same language family as Hebrew, made an important contribution to the revival of the language. In the 19th century, Hebrew writers began arriving in Palestine, influencing the development of spoken Hebrew. Hebrew schools were built, and Hebrew was used in public activities, and eventually became the language used by the Jewish population in Israel. This process was aided by many organizations that saw Hebrew as an ideological purpose. Today, the spoken Hebrew in Israel is called Israeli Hebrew or Modern Hebrew. How was this lesson? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. Leitot!
You've decided to study a new language, so now what? Well, you want to become fluent fast, right? Here are the top 5 shortcuts to learning a language. Number 1. Create a study schedule and set some goals. Many language learners are unorganized. Creating a schedule allows you to free up time to study consistently. Goals give you motivation and something to strive for. Number 2. Make it fun. If you learn how to make your study time enjoyable, chances are you'll be more inclined to study. Watch a TV show with subtitles or listen to some music. Number 3. Find a language partner. This is the best way to improve your conversation skills. It will help you gain fluency even faster and increase confidence when speaking. Number 4. Use word lists to build up a solid vocabulary. This is a great way to build up your fluency, one word at a time. Luckily, we have all the word lists you need, with a range of topics, from food to love. Choose whichever language you want to study and go! Number 5. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Nothing helps you improve more than correcting your own errors. You're more likely to remember it correctly the next time around. Everyone makes mistakes. Don't be afraid to learn from them. There's no magical way to learn a new language overnight, but doing all of these can really help your learning process. And remember, if you're interested in getting on the fast track to fluency, sign up for your free lifetime account. No credit card required, and you'll get the best free online resources. Start learning now.
Hi everybody, Edith here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I answer some of your most common Hebrew questions. The question for this lesson is, what does the word Nora mean and how should it be used? The word Nora has gone through some interesting changes over the years. It appears in the Bible meaning awesome or awe-inspiring in reference to God. You can say it in this sentence from the book of Deuteronomy, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanora, which means the great and mighty and awesome God. In modern-day Hebrew, the meaning of the word Nora has lost its positive aspects and become more about the fear-inducing aspects, becoming an adjective meaning terrible or awful, like in these examples. Haseret haya nora, the movie was awful. Or in this one, Zo hayta chavaya nora'a, it was a horrible experience. The word Nora also appears in the expression lo nora, meaning something like, it's okay or it's not a big deal. Let's look at this example. Say you're with your roommate and you're on your way home. When you check your bag, you realize you forgot your keys. Your roommate could say, שכחת את המפתחות? לא נורא, יש לי מפתח. You forgot the keys? It's okay, I have a key. The word Nora can also be used as an adverb meaning very or terribly. It can be added to negative adjectives, but also to positive adjectives like Nora yafa, terribly beautiful, or Nora ma'anyen, very interesting. It can appear either before or after the adjective. One important thing to note is that this use of the word Nora is colloquial and shouldn't be used in formal situations. So next time you're with your Israeli friends, try using the word Nora with one of the many expressions we've learned in this lesson and see how you sound. How was this lesson? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. להתראות.
Want to speak real Hebrew from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at HebrewPod101.com.
Hi everybody, Edith here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Hebrew questions. The question for this lesson is, why is the word panim, face in Hebrew, plural? This question has to do with an interesting phenomenon in the Hebrew language. There are a few nouns in Hebrew which are plural in their grammatical form, but singular conceptually. Sound confusing? Let's break it down. The four main nouns that are singular but plural grammatically are life, chaim, water, mayim, and sky, shamayim. In addition to the noun form, this lesson's question, panim. As you can see, all of these words have typical plural masculine endings, im. Grammatically speaking, these words are plural. They don't have a singular form, and the adjectives attached to them will take a plural form as well. Some examples would be chaim arukim, long life, mayim chamim, hot water, shamayim meunanim, cloudy sky, panim yafim, or yafot, pretty face. This noun is both feminine and masculine. So why are these words plural? There is no definite answer to this question, but there are a few interesting theories. One of those theories suggests that these words are plural because all of these nouns are constantly changing. Each of them is one noun that actually has many forms and cannot be captured by a singular noun. How was this lesson? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. להתראות. Hi everybody, Edith here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Hebrew questions. The question for this lesson is, how do you use the Hebrew preposition al? The Hebrew word al has many uses. It can mean on, about, of, at, or for, depending on the context. Let's go through some examples so you can learn how to use al correctly. First, let's do some examples for when al means on. יש ארנק על השולחן. There is a wallet on the table. התמונה תלויה על הקיר. The picture is hanging on the wall. Here are some examples of the word על when it means about or of. אנחנו צריכים לדבר על זה. We need to talk about this. לא שמעתי על הסרט הזה. I haven't heard of this movie. The word על is also used as at to indicate a direction, like in this sentence. תסתכלי על האיש הזה. Look at that man. It can also be used as for to indicate purpose or consideration. תודה על המתנה. Thank you for the present. הוא נענש על הפשע שביצע. He was punished for the crime he committed. The word al can also be conjugated in a few ways depending on the subject it's referring to. These conjugations are created by combining the preposition al with a pronoun such as I or you. These conjugations are needed in case the word al is referring to a person not being mentioned by name. For example, if we said, I'm thinking about him, instead of, I'm thinking about Ben. Likewise, it can also be conjugated for objects without explicitly stating them. For example, the book is on it, instead of, the book is on the shelf. Here are a few examples for conjugations of the word al. סיפרתי לך עליה. I told you about her. אין מקום על השולחן, יש עליו ספרים. There is no room on the table, it has books on it. אתה יכול להסתכל על הרהיטים, אבל אל תישען עליהם. Literally, you can look at the furniture, but don't lean on them. כל הקפה נשפך עליי. All the coffee was spilled on me. How was this lesson? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. להתראות. Hi everybody, Edith here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Hebrew questions. The question for this lesson is, what does the expression al regel ahat mean? This expression, meaning literally on one foot, is very common in Hebrew, and many people use it without even knowing its origin. Basically, it's used to describe something that's done offhandedly with no previous thought or preparation. But where did it come from? The origin of this expression, like many other Hebrew expressions, is a story from the Talmud, a central text of Rabbinic Judaism. The story revolves around the great Talmudic sage Hillel, also known as Hillel the Elder, one of the most important figures in Jewish history. Hillel was a famous scholar known for his gentleness and patience. In the Talmud, Hillel is often mentioned together with his colleague Shammai. The two scholars often disagreed on the interpretations of Torah law. While Shammai tended to follow the stricter interpretation, Hillel considered love of man as the core of Jewish teaching. Our story is about a man who wanted to convert to Judaism, but didn't really want to put in the time or effort to do so. This man went to Shammai with one request. He wanted Shammai to teach him the entire Torah while he, the student, was standing on one foot. Shammai was insulted by the man's ridiculous request, since the Torah is deep, profound, and complex, and cannot be taught in the short time in which a person can stand on one foot. When Shammai threw him out of the house, the man went to Hillel. He asked him for the same thing. Hillel accepted the challenge and told the man, "What is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor." That's the whole Torah. The rest of the explanation of this, go and study it. The story teaches us the special virtues of Hillel and of the Torah, and it's also the source of the expression al regel ahat, on one foot. Today, you can use this expression when you want to imply that something is done briefly, without much thought behind it. For example, if you want to say that an issue is very complicated and cannot be solved easily, you can say, "זה עניין מסובך, אי אפשר לפתור אותו על רגל אחת." It's a complicated issue, it cannot be resolved on one foot. Or, if you just gave someone the short, undetailed version of a complicated matter, you can say, "זה כל הסיפור על רגל אחת." That's the whole story on one foot. You can also find this expression in introductory articles and books that explain complicated issues in an accessible way. Something like Guides for Dummies. For example, the title of an article about economics that try to simplify the basics of it could be כלכלה על רגל אחת, economy on one foot. How was this lesson? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. להתראות.
Want to get cheat sheets, audiobooks, lessons, apps, and much more every month for free? Just click the link in the description to get your free language gifts of the month.
Hi everybody, Edith here. Welcome to Hebrew Top Words. Today we're going to talk about 10 ways to remember Hebrew words. אני לומדת על השורשים של מילים ואיך מילים שונות קשורות אחת לשנייה. I learn about the roots of the words and how different words are related to each other. אני לומדת על השורשים של מילים ואיך מילים שונות קשורות אחת לשנייה. I learn about the roots of the words and how different words are related to each other. In Hebrew, we have something called a root system. Words from similar fields of concept or from similar source would have a lot of basics, the same basic consonants. So for instance, the word airplane is matos, and the word flight is tisa, and the word for the verb flying is latus. So you can hear there are slight changes in the words, and sometimes it's a verb and sometimes it's a noun, but those two letters of t and s are still there, and that kind of makes it easier to remember. אני מדברת כמה שאני יכולה עם דוברי שפת אם של השפה. I speak as often as possible with native speakers. אני מדברת כמה שאני יכולה עם דוברי שפת אם של השפה. I speak as often as possible with native speakers of the language. This is very important because native speakers can, fix your little mistakes and your little bugs and maybe teach you some new words or some modern words or some slang that you might not learn otherwise, especially some rough slang. And that makes your Hebrew speaking much more natural. than just studying it from a book or from a teacher. אני מנסה להשתמש במילה חדשה במשפט פשוט, כך שאני לומדת משפטים שלמים, ולא רק מילים בודדות. I try to use the new word in a simple sentence, so I learn whole phrases, not just individual words. אני מנסה להשתמש במילה חדשה במשפט פשוט, כך שאני לומדת משפט שלם ולא רק מילה בודדת. I try to use the new word in a simple sentence, so I study a whole phrase and not just an individual word. When you just learn a word, you might not be able to actually use it when you want to, when you find the need to use that word, even though you know it somewhere in the back of your head. But when you create like a situation in your mind in which you will use this word, or a phrase that's very, very useful for that specific word, then you kind of have it more handy in your memory to pull it out whenever you actually need to. אני מנסה לחשוב בעברית, כך שזה יעשה טבעי לתהליך החשיבה שלי. I try to think in Hebrew so it becomes natural to my thought process. אני מנסה לחשוב בעברית, כך שזה יעשה טבעי לתהליך החשיבה שלי. I try to think in Hebrew so it becomes a natural part of my thinking process. I remember years ago when I just studied English and I was just a little girl, all of a sudden I found myself like thinking in English and dreaming in English, and that's a really important thing to do also, because when you think it, you can speak it. If you don't think before you speak, then nothing is going to come out. It's going to come out very like, If you think about stuff, not just before you're speaking, but just in general, making conversations in your head, that would really help you use it in a very, very fluent way. אני מקשיבה לשירים ומשננת את המילים. I listen to songs and memorize the lyrics. אני מקשיבה לשירים ומשננת את המילים. I listen to songs and memorize the lyrics. This is like one of my favorite ways to actually learn new language and learn new vocabulary and new sentences. It's just a fun way, and there's something about a song that you won't forget so easily, like just speaking. It's a song, it's stuck in your head and you want to sing it. It comes like from somewhere in your soul. And when you memorize the word, which is something that I love doing, I love knowing the lyrics of songs, then it just makes you feel like so much more comfortable. And I did that with French, and I actually did that with German too. And I studied quite a bit of German just from German music. So that's kind of fun. אני מקשרת מילים חדשות עם מילים שנשמעות דומה בשפת האם שלי. I associate new words with words that sound similar in my native language. אני מקשרת מילים חדשות עם מילים שנשמעות דומה בשפת האם שלי. I associate new words with similar sounding words in my own native language. So this is also a good way to remember individual words, and to be honest, it kind of sometimes create really funny situations or very funny associations. It's really, really good, because if something makes you laugh, you're not going to forget it. If something makes you smile, you're going to remember it better than just something that you repeated over and over. אני משתמשת בחזרות, קוראת, כותבת, וחוזרת על מילים שוב ושוב. I use repetition, reading, writing, and speaking words over and over again. אני משתמשת בחזרות, קוראת, כותבת, וחוזרת על מילים שוב ושוב. I use repetition, reading, writing, and speaking words over and over again. So sometimes, you can't escape it. That's something that you just kind of have to do, You have to keep repeating stuff to memorize them, to remember them, especially when it comes to grammar. Sometimes there's no other way, and repeating is the best way to do it, I guess. אני צופה בתוכניות טלוויזיה וסרטים מישראל בשביל להיחשף לאוצר מילים יומיומי ולקצב דיבור טבעי. I watch Israeli TV shows and movies with English subtitles to expose myself to everyday vocabulary and a natural speaking flow. אני צופה בתוכניות טלוויזיה וסרטים מישראל בשביל להיחשף לאוצר מילים יומיומי ולקצב דיבור טבעי. I watch Israeli TV shows and movies to expose myself to daily vocabulary and a natural speaking flow. This is how I studied English. Like, what I studied in school hardly even helped me. I used to watch English TV all the time with Hebrew subtitles, and now I'm doing the same with a different language as well. So it's really important just watching TV, because when people are going to speak with you and they see, oh, this is not your native language and maybe you're struggling, they might like dumb down the way they speak to you and speak slower in very simple words. But when you're watching TV, you're seeing how people actually speak. And then you also have the opportunity to see the translation below, and you can compare what they're saying with what you're reading and what you know already. And quite quickly you would expand your vocabulary and significantly improve the naturality of your speaking. אני מנסה לקרוא ספרים פשוטים בעברית ולתרגל קריאה ללא ניקוד בשביל לשפר את יכולות הקריאה שלי. I try to read simple books in Hebrew and practice reading without nikud to improve my reading ability. אני מנסה לקרוא ספרים פשוטים בעברית ולתרגל קריאה ללא ניקוד בשביל לשפר את יכולות הקריאה שלי. I try to read simple books in Hebrew and also practice reading without nikud to improve my reading ability. So, reading without nikud is something that you really have to practice, and to be honest, most places you will go, there won't be any nikud at all. People use nikud today for kids' books and poetry books, even if it's like simple poetry, high poetry, they always use nikud no matter what. But in regular books and street signs and menus, you will never see it. As much as you can, try reading without it, and starting with nikud, slowly progressing to books without it. That's something that's really important, because otherwise you'll always find yourself struggling reading stuff around you. אני לומדת עברית עם HebrewPod101.com בשביל ללמוד משפטים מודרניים בעברית עם מילים שימושיות ליום-יום. I learn Hebrew with HebrewPod101.com to learn modern phrases and actual usable words. אני לומדת עברית עם HebrewPod101.com בשביל ללמוד משפטים מודרניים בעברית עם מילים שימושיות ליום-יום. I learn Hebrew with HebrewPod101.com to learn modern phrases and actual usable words. So yeah, HebrewPod gives you the opportunity to listen to how Israeli people actually speak and what they actually say, whereas if you study in a classroom or from a textbook, most often some of the words and phrases there would be kind of archaic and not something that people really use. So when you talk to people, they would know, oh yeah, like he studied in an ulpan, he studied in from a textbook. And if you sound more naturally and you speak in more modern phrases, they would think, oh yeah, like this guy has been living here, he's talking to Israeli people, he knows some stuff. So HebrewPod 101, really good way to study. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Hi everybody, Edith here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Hebrew questions. The question for this lesson is, can you use adjectives as nouns in Hebrew? In Hebrew, it's possible to omit the noun and use its adjective instead. To explain how it's done, let's look at some examples. Let's say you're at a clothing store looking for a new shirt. You've tried on a few, and now you need to decide which shirt to buy. Eventually, you decide on a red one. You can tell the salesperson, I'll take the red shirt. אני אקח את החולצה האדומה. But since it's obvious the subject here is the shirt, you can simply say, I'll take the red one. אני אקח את האדומה. Unlike English, when the word shirt is omitted, it's not replaced by another noun or one. The adjective itself functions as a noun. It's important to note that the adjectives you use has to match the gender of the original noun. The word for shirt in Hebrew, chulza, is feminine. So the adjective red, adom, took its feminine form, aduma. If you were to buy a hat instead of a shirt, you would have to match the adjective to the gender of the masculine word hat, kova, and say adom. Likewise, if you want to refer to an item that has the plural form, like flowers, socks, or glasses, you'll use the plural form for the adjectives, adumim or adumot. Let's put it all in one example. Let's say you run into a friend you haven't seen for a long time and ask how are her 4 children doing. She gives you a quick update on them. The older son is an actor. The middle daughter goes to university, and the young ones are still in school. If she were to say that in Hebrew, her sentences would have been much shorter, since the subject is her children, and the adjectives explain the gender and the quantity of the nouns. She will not have to say son, daughter, or ones because all the information is included in the adjectives. Here is the Hebrew sentence. הגדול שחקן, האמצעית לומדת באוניברסיטה, והקטנים עדיין בבית הספר. Hebrew adjectives help you keep your sentences short and sweet. How was this lesson? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. See you in another lesson. להתראות! Hi everybody, Edith here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Hebrew questions. The question for this lesson is, what does the particle I mean in Hebrew? I is a prefix symbolizing negation. It comes from the word en, literally meaning there is no. When this prefix is joined with certain words, the compound means the opposite of the original word. As you may know, nouns in Hebrew have gender, so if you add a prefix to it, how do you know what gender it is? Trick question. Actually, the prefix doesn't affect the gender of the word it precedes. Let's look at some examples. The word havana means understanding, so אי-הבנה is misunderstanding, like in this sentence. אני מתנצלת, זו הייתה אי-הבנה. I apologize, it was a misunderstanding. The noun understanding, havana, is a feminine noun. When adding I to it, the gender doesn't change. This is why we use the feminine form of it was, זו הייתה. Next, we have the word justice, which in Hebrew is tzedek. So, when we combine it with the prefix I, it becomes אי-צדק. Injustice, like in this sentence. מדיניות הממשלה יוצרת אי-צדק חברתי. The government's policy is creating social injustice. The noun justice, tzedek, is masculine and wasn't changed by the prefix I. This is why the adjective social, חברתי, takes the masculine form. Our last tip is about the plural form. Once again, the prefix has no influence on the gender of the word. The word will take its plural form, if it has one, and the prefix will stay where it is. For example, let's look at the compound from the beginning of this lesson. Misunderstanding. Understanding is havana, so misunderstanding will be אי-הבנה. The plural form of understanding is havanot, so the plural form of misunderstanding is אי-הבנות. How was it? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. להתראות! Hi everybody, Edith here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Hebrew questions. The question for this lesson is, why is it that in Hebrew some adjectives are different when they refer to people than when they refer to objects? This issue involves adjectives in their feminine form, mostly adjectives for nationality like American or Russian. The difference is in the ending of the adjectives. It can either be with it or with ya. For example, a Russian woman would be isha Rusiya, but a Russian boat will be sfina Rusit. So why does this happen? First of all, it's important to know that both forms of these adjectives are commonly used, but in different contexts. Usually the ending ya, like in Rusiya, Russian woman, is used to refer to a woman, while the ending it, like in Rusit, Russian boat, is used to describe places or objects, such as a restaurant, a shirt, or the Russian language. Grammatically speaking, both forms are acceptable. The foundation of Hebrew grammar is the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, in which we find both of those forms used for all purposes. In the Tanakh, the feminine ending ya describes women, but also objects or places, like in the word nochriya, meaning foreign. Some examples with this word would be Anuchi nochriya, I am foreign, and be'eretz nochriya, in a foreign country. Besides the ending ya, there is the ending it, also used in the Tanakh for both people and objects. For example, Isha Mitzrit, Egyptian woman. Dlat Mitzrit, Egyptian pumpkin. We can even find both endings for the same definition. Ruth HaMoaviyah, Ruth the Moabite, Ruth from the kingdom of Moab. Shimrit HaMoavit, Shimrit the Moabite, Shimrit from the kingdom of Moab. However, as I said earlier, in today's Hebrew there is usually a difference between the two forms. This rule doesn't apply only to nationalities but to other adjectives as well. Let's look at some examples. Isha Datiyah, religious woman. Shchuna Datit, religious neighborhood. Isha Chofshiyah, free woman. Tznicha Chofshit, free falling, which more naturally translates as skydiving. Since this is not a set rule but rather a differentiation used in more common language, sometimes the ending it is used for a woman too, like in these examples. Secular woman, Chilonit. Iranian woman, Iranit. Israeli woman, Israelit. Confused? Well, there are some good news. Regardless of the singular form, the plural form will always stay the same, iot. For example, let's look at some adjectives that are used when referring to a woman. As you may know, the adjective has to agree with the noun in both gender and number. Rusiot, Russian. Datiot, religious. Chofshiyot, free. How was this lesson? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. Leitot! Hi everybody, Edith here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Hebrew questions. The question for this lesson is, what is the construct state smichut and what are its rules? The smichut construct is very confusing, since it can alter the forms of words and change all kinds of grammatical rules. Let's try to make it clearer. So what is smichut anyway? Basically, it's a way of expressing of in Hebrew, and it consists of two words side by side that create a noun. Let's go through some examples so you can learn how to use smichut correctly. Let's look at a simple example. The compound water bottle. A water bottle is a bottle of water. In this compound, the main noun is the second word, the bottle, and the first word describes the noun. In Hebrew, it will be pretty much the same, except that the first word will be the main noun and the second will be the description. So, in Hebrew, water bottle will be bakbuk maim. Bakbuk meaning bottle and maim meaning water. Some compounds combine two nouns to create a completely different noun. For example, the word weather in Hebrew is the compound mezeg avir. The word mezeg means temper and avir means air. So literally, this compound means air temper. In some cases, the singular form of a compound can include a plural noun. For example, the compound dog trainer in Hebrew will be me'alef klavim. The word for trainer, me'alef, will be singular, but the word for dog, kelev, will take the plural form, klavim. This is to indicate that the trainer trains more than one specific dog. In the same way, a window cleaner will be menakeh chalonot and not menakeh chalon. So far it's not so bad, right? Well, now it's starting to get complicated. If the main noun is feminine, singular, and ends with the letter hey, then the hey becomes tough. Like in this example of the compound cheesecake, uga plus gvina, ugat gvina. Another issue is the plural form of these compounds. Like in English, when multiplying the compound, only one of the nouns takes the plural form, the main one. Therefore, if we want to say cheesecakes, we will not say ugot gvinot, but rather ugot gvina. If the main noun is masculine and plural, the plural masculine ending, im, becomes a. Notice that the nikud appears on the letter just before the yud. We'll use our first example again. If we want to say water bottles, the plural form of bakbuk, bakbukim, will turn into bakbukei, like so. Bakbukim plus maim, bakbukei maim. Another rule the smichot is altering is the prefix ha, which means the. As you may know, when turning an indefinite noun into definite, we add the prefix ha to the noun itself, and also to the adjective it has. For example, the big bottle will be habakbuk hagadol. However, in smichut compounds, only the describing noun gets the prefix ha, like so. Bakbuk hamayim, the water bottle. Lastly, there is one more issue, perhaps the most confusing one. Sometimes the vowels of the first noun change, like in these examples. Cheder plus ochel. Chadar ochel, dining room. Bait plus kele. Beit kele, jailhouse. Most Hebrew speakers don't know the complicated rules for this unique construct. They simply learned how to use it when acquiring the language growing up. For Hebrew learners, it's definitely harder to learn these exceptions. But the more Hebrew you hear and speak, the more natural it will become. How was this lesson? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. Leitrot!
Want to get cheat sheets, audiobooks, lessons, apps, and much more every month for free? Just click the link in the description to get your free language gifts of the month.
Hi everybody, Edith here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Hebrew questions. The question for this lesson is, what are some common Hebrew idioms? Every language has its everyday idioms. In English, for example, we have idioms like, what's up, or it's raining cats and dogs. In this lesson, you learn some everyday Hebrew idioms. The first one is, lidchof et ha'af. It literally means pushing or shoving one's nose. As you can probably guess, it means to meddle in other people's business. The next one is lasot sipur. It literally means to make a story, and it's used like the idiom to make a big deal in English. For example, al taseh mize sipur. Don't make a big deal out of it. The next idiom has to do with superstition. Liftoch pe satan. It literally means to open one's mouth to the devil. It originated from the Jewish prohibition against saying bad things about yourself or other people. Today, however, it's used in a similar way to the expression, don't tempt fate. Don't say good things because you might jinx your luck. For example, אני חושבת שאני אעבור את המבחן, אבל אני לא רוצה לפתוח פה לשטן. I think I'll pass the exam, but I don't want to tempt fate. Our last idiom represents a life philosophy. Bali. It literally means, comes to me. But it means something like, I want, with a whimsical edge to it. A lot like the expression, I feel like. It was considered a children's idiom, but quickly became common among people of all ages. You can use it with nouns like, bali pizza. I feel like eating pizza. Or with verbs like, lo bali lelech la'avoda. I don't feel like going to work. Note that this is a slightly cheeky expression, so you shouldn't use it in formal situations or with people you don't really know. It can come off as rude. How was this lesson? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. Leitrot! Hi everybody, Edith here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Hebrew questions. The question for this lesson is, what are the differences between all the adverbs that mean really and very in Hebrew? There are a few adverbs that can mean very or really, and this can be somewhat confusing. In this lesson, we'll review some of the most common ones to clear things up. The most basic one, which is the most accurate equivalent of very, is me'od. Like any other adverb in Hebrew, me'od should come after the adjective it refers to. However, due to the influence of English and other languages, in colloquial use, it can appear before the adjective. It's very simple. For example, let's look at the two ways to say a very big house, using the word me'od. Bait gadol me'od. Bait me'od gadol. Our next word is mamash. The adverb mamash means really, truly, or very. For example, really good could be mamash tov. In colloquial speech, it can also precede the word no to mean absolutely not, or no way. Mamash lo. The next adverb is be'emet. It literally means in truth, and is used to make sure something is true or real. For example, is it really you in the picture? Would be, ze be'emet ata b'tmuna? Unlike any of the previous words in this lesson, this word can also stand alone. You can ask, be'emet? When you hear something surprising like, there's a bear in the kitchen. Be'emet? Our next adjective is a lot like the word most, beyoter. The adverb beyoter comes after the adjective. When it comes after a definite adverb, it means the most, like in the biggest house, הבית הגדול ביותר. When it comes after a verb or an indefinite adverb, it means quite, very much, like in a very big house, בית גדול ביותר. The next word is the colloquial version of ביותר, הכי. This adverb means the most, and will always come before the adjective like so. הכי גדול, the biggest. הכי חכם, the smartest. Our last word is one you may have heard before, Nora. This word can be either an adjective meaning terrible or an adverb meaning terribly, that can be used together with negative or positive adjectives. Like מאוד, it can appear either before or after the adjective, like this. נורא טעים, terribly tasty. מפחיד נורא, terribly scary. Adverbs can make your sentence much more expressive, so try and use them. How was this lesson? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. להתראות. Hi everybody, Edith here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Hebrew questions. The question for this lesson is, what are the meanings of some of Hebrew's unique greetings? Hebrew has special greetings for different occasions. Let's take a closer look at some of them. We'll start with the very useful greeting which means good luck, בהצלחה. It literally means with success, as if to say, may you complete your task with success. You can say to a person to wish them good luck with a test, a job interview, a new project, or any other goal they wish to achieve. For example, if your friend got promoted and you want to wish him or her good luck with their new job, you can say, בהצלחה בתפקיד החדש, or simply, בהצלחה. The next expression can be heard around dinner tables, in pubs, and at parties. L'chaim. It means cheers and it's used as a toast when drinking with company. The literal meaning of l'chaim is to life, reminding us that life itself should always be celebrated. L'chaim. This next expression can come in handy when celebrating a happy occasion such as a wedding, engagement, childbirth, graduation, and so on. When someone congratulates you, you can answer בקרוב אצלך, literally meaning, soon so shall it be by you. For example, if you just got engaged to your girlfriend and a single friend congratulates you, you can reply with תודה, בקרוב אצלך. To a female friend, you will say בקרוב אצלך. The last expression is a famous one. You may know it since it came from Yiddish and was adopted by English as well. You may know it as mazel tov, and in Hebrew it's mazal tov. It literally means good luck, but is used as congratulations. This expression was originally meant to declare that a good thing had happened. It was said at weddings and births as if to say, what a lucky event has happened. With time, the meaning was altered a little, and today this expression is used to wish a person luck in the future. You can use it whenever you want to congratulate someone, on a new job, winning an award, graduating from university, and so on. For example, מזל טוב ליום ההולדת, literally, congratulations for your birthday. Or, מזל טוב על הזכייה במקום הראשון, congratulations on winning the first place. How was this lesson? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. להתראות. Hi everybody, Edith here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Hebrew questions. The question for this lesson is, why is it that counting nouns in Hebrew, the counted noun is sometimes referred to as singular, even if there's more than one? You may have heard the common Hebrew birthday greeting, Ad 120 shana, meaning, may you live to be 120, or literally, until 120 years. If you have, you probably wondered why the word for year, shana, is in its singular form and not its plural form, shanim. The reason for this is a rule regarding Hebrew counting. When counting a noun in Hebrew, if you have more than 10 of the same item, you can refer to the items as singular or as plural. It's your choice. 10 items or fewer will always be plural. For example, 50 shekels could be either 50 shkalim or 50 shekel, and 75 people could either be 75 אנשים or 75 ish. But 9 years can only be 9 shanim, and 5% can only be 5%. However, despite this rule, using the singular form for counting is common only with nouns that are counted frequently, like money, units of time such as hours, days, and years, or percents. It's unlikely to hear someone say, "Yesh 20 ציפור על העץ." It's like saying there are 20 birds on the tree. If you're unsure, you can just use the plural form with numbers except 1. It will always be appropriate. How was this lesson? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. להתראות! Hi everybody, Edith here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Hebrew questions. The question for this lesson is, how can I tell what the plural forms of Hebrew nouns are? In order to understand plural nouns, you'll need to learn how nouns in Hebrew work first. All nouns are either masculine or feminine, and their gender depends on the last letter of the Hebrew word. Sounds confusing? Don't worry, we'll break it down in this lesson. Most feminine nouns end in the letters taf, t, or hey, h, while most masculine nouns end in any other letter. The plural form of the nouns is just as easy to remember. The basic rule is that feminine nouns change the last letter to the letters vav, taf, ot, while masculine nouns get an extra yod mem at the end, im. Let's do some examples so you can learn how to make plural nouns correctly in Hebrew. First, let's take the word lamp, which in Hebrew is menorah. Lamp ends in hey, so it's feminine. To make a feminine noun plural, we simply remove the hey and add vav taf, ot, and get the word menorot, meaning lamps. Let's do another example with a masculine noun. The word for bag in Hebrew is tik. Tik is a masculine noun, so we just add yud mem, im, at the end and we get tikim, meaning bags. So far so good, but of course there are some exceptions. Some nouns get the opposite gender ending in the plural form. For example, the word ant in Hebrew is nemala. It ends in hey, and like most of the nouns that end in this letter, it's a feminine noun. However, in the plural form, it takes on the masculine ending, so it sounds like this, nemalim, meaning ants. Another example is the word table, which in Hebrew is shulchan. Here, it's the opposite. Table is a masculine noun, but in the plural form, it takes the feminine ending, making the word shulchanot, tables. Unfortunately, there is no rule to help you figure out which are the exceptions to the rule. Hebrew learners just have to memorize them. How was this lesson? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. להתראות! Hi everybody, Edith here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Hebrew questions. The question for this lesson is, what does the Hebrew expression Rosh Katan mean? The expression Rosh Katan literally means small head and is used to describe a person who only does the bare minimum or doesn't think outside the box. It's mostly a negative expression, but you can also use it to describe yourself, like this. אני מעדיף להיות ראש קטן. Literally, I prefer to be a small head. The opposite expression is ראש גדול, meaning big head. This describes a person who makes an effort to go above and beyond what is expected of him. It's a positive attribute and is often seen in job advertisements as something companies are looking for in a candidate. This expression can also appear in a different form as a verb, להגדיל ראש, to make one's head larger or to expand one's head. You can use this expression if you want to say that a certain person is very responsible and will go out of their way to think outside the box and find creative solutions. Here are a few examples. ענת היא מנהלת מצוינת. היא תמיד מגדילה ראש. Literally, Anat is an excellent manager. She always expands her head. Here's another example. איתי, אם אתה רוצה להתקדם בחברה, אתה חייב להתחיל להגדיל ראש. Literally, Itai, if you want to rise in the company ranks, you have to start expanding your head. Do you know any other Hebrew idioms? Tell us in the comments. How was this lesson? Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. להתראות!